There. This morning, I want to talk about what is consulting, because that's kind of a natural place for people to start a business, especially if they have professional experience that they're coming into and are looking to provide services to other business owners. And so that can be kind of a weird thing. I mean, some people's experience with consulting might be, from Office Space, where the consultants come in, look around, and are like, yeah, you need to lay off a bunch of people. And that's consulting. But my experience with that was always different because I always worked for engineering consultants. And so we were basically just professionals that people hired when they had a need for an engineer. And so that was considered consulting. And so really consulting is just exchanging your expertise for money. And there are multiple ways to do that. In some cases, you're doing that as a full-time employee, but you can also do it on your own. And I was talking with someone who has a lot of experience doing sales and customer support and customer relations, and keeping customers happy, and because it's a lot more expensive to bring on a new customer than it is to retain an existing customer. And so there's value in keeping your customers happy and not losing them. And she does that in-house, and ultimately would like to be doing something on her own. And we were talking about that because a natural place for her to go, where you can make a livelihood, is to take something that businesses want. I mean, as I've mentioned, you can certainly do a more artistic or consumer-based business and product, and be quite successful with it. My experience, though, happens to be with serving other businesses. And so that's where I just tend to think of things. And businesses have money. And even if you're working with other small businesses, that is a business to business relationship rather than a business to consumer relationship. So what can you do with something like that? Like, how can you translate that knowledge into consulting? Because sometimes we get in these tunnels where we can't see what our skills are could apply to anyone else. Well, I mean, when it comes right down to it, in this example, any business needs to keep their customers, or is better off keeping their customers than having to bring on new customers, because customer retention is less expensive, like I said, and than customer acquisition. And so every company in the world needs that, or should value that. Now, not every company is going to do that, but that's still a lot of the companies that know they need to do that. That's still a lot of companies. Now, what might not be true for a lot of those companies, though, is, do they need someone to do that full time? And the answer is no. I mean, big corporations will have that, but smaller ones might not, especially if they're not thinking about it in that way. And so what happens in some smaller companies is you end up with a person who's kind of doing multiple jobs, and it's like they aren't all related, and it's stressful, or they just don't have people doing things. And it's just something that, oh yeah, we know we should do that, but we don't have a person to do that. And it's not worth hiring a full-time person to do that. And so those are the opportunities that you have as a consultant to go in and say, hey, I can do this. I can fill this role, but you don't need to, but it's not a full-time role. Like I can do these things for you, and it solves the problem. Oops, I just dropped one of my little fidget beads. It solves the problem, but it doesn't cost them as much as it would to bring on a new salaried person. And so one of the words that's being used for some of that, instead of consultant, is like a fractional something, like a fractional project manager, or a fractional marketing officer, or a fractional CFO. Usually I think that tends to be more of the like higher level, like C-suite kinds of things, but it can apply to anything. So what you're saying is that you don't need someone full-time, but you can pay for the fraction that you need. And that is where consulting neatly fits in, because then you can have multiple clients that you're doing things for, and you're helping all of them, but none of them need you full time. But by helping all of them, you are acquiring a full-time salary or whatever it is that you want to make work. And so that's really all consulting is. And but it's different than just a flat, or you should think about it differently than just a flat trade for time. Like, I will give you an hour of my time for X amount of dollars. You can do that. The trouble is you get limited. Your time is limited. You can't make more time. But what you're providing isn't your time. It's your knowledge and your expertise. And that has value beyond the minutes you spend on it. I mean, that's just like your whole history of knowledge and experience that you are sharing with someone who doesn't have that. And it benefits them. It gives them value. So there's, your pricing should reflect your value, not your dollar amounts. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in another video, because it can get kind of complicated, especially when you start thinking about how to price yourself and what things to think about, and how to make sure that you're making enough money. Because it's not just like saying, oh, I make, X amount of dollars now, I just need to charge the equivalent of that over 40 hours, because the math doesn't work quite right. So it isn't just a trading, like I am going to spend 4 hours on this task and my rate is $400 or is $100 an hour. So it's a $400 task. You can do that. And there are going to be clients who are going to push for that. But I don't charge hourly. I don't price hourly. When clients try to get me to do that, I really consider whether I want to work with them, because if they are so focused on the hours that you are spending on something rather than the quality of the result or the deliverable, that's not a good fit for me, because I don't want to work with people who are worried more about time than quality. And conversely, they'll be mad if something takes longer. And in a lot of creative fields, and by creative, that doesn't mean artistic necessarily. It means anything where you're creating something from nothing. So you're creating a system for someone, or a process, or a deliverable of some sort, where you're starting from nothing and you are creating something. That process isn't always set. Sometimes you need to think about things some more. Sometimes things would take longer than you would anticipate, and then they might be mad that it took you longer to spend your hours on there. So by pricing based on value, you get you have a much more partnership, equal relationship than this trading dollars for time relationship. And so it's more like equals rather than this kind of employee-employer relationship. And that's really one of the benefits of going into consulting or working for yourself, is that you're not there's not this hierarchy that you're dealing with. You're dealing with more partnerships, and you're partnering with people that you can help and you want to work with. So that is something that I push back on with, like, the hourly rates. I don't do that, because I do it based on projects. And sometimes I just explain that to the clients. I'm like, yeah, I don't do that. And in the end, I'm the one who's taking the risk, because there's a chance that I'll get whatever is done quickly, because I have experience, and maybe it's just I get an idea and it's quick, and I'm able to complete something quickly. But that's very rare. Like, often I have to think about things and do the work. And then sometimes I want to think about things more, or I know the idea isn't working quite like I want it to, and I have to spend more time on it. So I'm taking the risk that I will spend more time on it than I would have benefited from if we had done hourly. And usually people understand that. And if they don't, it's, again, like I said, it's a good cue for me that it might not be a good fit. So really that is at the heart of it, what consulting is you are trading your experience and knowledge to help someone create whatever solution they need, but that they don't need full-time support for. And you can do that again as completely as a consultant. If you have a more niche background, like you are a CFO or have been, and you want to market as a fractional CFO, or you want to market as a fractional operations manager, or a fractional sales manager. I don't know if that would work, but or sales trainer. There's all kinds of ways that you can look at what you do now and think about how many companies are out there that need that service that probably don't need it full time. And there's a huge market for that. And so that is a good place to start if you're thinking about what is it that I could do and how would I actually do that? Like how, because obviously you need to get clients to start a business, but that getting your clients can be daunting. But when you start thinking about all of the possibilities out there, you'll be surprised how many opportunities there are to build a very successful business without even needing a ton of clients. You don't, depending on what you're doing, if you're able to find 4 clients and you're giving them all about 25% of your time, that's not unreasonable, and it's not insurmountable. You have to start thinking about the value of what you provide rather than the amount of time that you provide it in. And so that's just something to keep in mind that I hope helps you out. And in the next video, I'm going to talk more about figuring out like the actual dollars and cents of pricing, because you do want to think about the time you're spending on it. You just don't want to price based on that. Anyway, if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them, or either about this or anything else that you've been thinking about if you are considering starting your own business. Otherwise, just like and share or subscribe if you want to keep listening and learning about basic business stuff. And I will talk to you soon.